Hello, everyone. Seth here at the Visual Arts Academy and Studio, along with Thomas Tupper, our co-founder. And boy, are we excited to draw, paint, and create with you guys live this evening. Thomas, it is a beautiful day here in Louisville, Kentucky, and it's going to be a wonderful evening of drawing and painting. How are you feeling tonight, bud? You excited and ready to create?
I'm feeling excited, ready to go. I'm going to continue with my drawing, and it's a nice afternoon here as well, so not too shabby.
That's fantastic. With Thomas and I working, we're going to explain first. We kind of dive in, explain what we're working on, kind of get you guys situated, get you guys set up, make sure you guys have got some drawing materials with you, painting materials. We hope that you're creating with us. We're so excited for you to join us here at the V.A.A.S live sessions. Tonight, I'm going to be continuing to work on the portrait of my daughter, Everly, and it's the grisaille process, which is painting in grayscale first and then doing glazes on top. And Thomas, what are you working on tonight, bud?
I'm going to continue on a pencil drawing. So this is a lot of value and shade forward type abstract composition of these volumes, these volumetric objects. So a little bit of still kind of playing around with kind of the composition, the main objects that I want to explore and maybe adapt to a bigger drawing.
That's awesome. So make sure you let us know you're joining us. Let us know what you're working on. We love it when you ask questions about technique, skill sets, art history, just about anything. Everything is on the table for you guys to talk about. We're going to get started. And Thomas, I've got a big question for you. Last week, we didn't have a V.A.A.S Live, but 2 weeks ago, you joined Chad and I on the V.A.A.S Live session, and you were talking about the sculptural elements of drawing, like really kind of, the idea of drawing is almost like hyper sculpture almost, or sculpture is hyper drawing. What do you think? Why is that? Why does the brain see drawings that are two-dimensional, three-dimensionally? What makes it so unique?
I mean, I think, our eye and our mind and brain are used to interpreting a 3D world. So, when we're drawing, we're taking that three-dimensionality and making it two-dimensional. That's one challenge in of itself, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not able to work around a 3D paper or canvas, but learning how to project that 3D object in a way onto this 2D surface, but still maintaining the 3D quality of it. That's definitely very important, and I think that's where maybe to your question specifically, we approach it in a sculptural sense, that we want it to still perceive or to give that illusion, that optical feeling that it's a three-dimensional object. And that's where learning how to control your values, your shading, and work with the volumetric aspect of if it's human figure, if it's an apple, if it's a landscape. There's still this different aspects that come into it that you need to consider for the three-dimensional recreation of it, atmospherical, fading and all these types of little tricks of the trade. But really, I wouldn't say tricks, I would say it's skill sets, to learn how to adequately portray distance, scale, proportion, those are all very important elements. I might work on this for the first half of this session of the live, and then I might switch over to kind of some figure sketching. And there, maybe we could get into that a little bit as I work on some figures, and you'll see a little bit of that sculptural, especially in my approach. I'm very sculptural with my figures. I like to think of the skeletal mechanic part of the body as, you're working through it and drawing. You want to kind of understand also how bones sit, how gravity works, how weight is distributed. When there's a pose, if a person has one hand on a hip, that hip is usually the one that bears the weight, that leg, so then there's slight inclinations of the hip bones of the shoulder. The shoulders are going to go, in the opposite direction. So there's all these interesting things that the body naturally does to balance itself out. But, as an artist, to capture those little details, to understand them, to see them, and to really portray, how to make it feel 3D. To the viewer. That's the challenge, and also the gratifying part at the end of the day.
Well, I would agree with that, because we were just doing an oil painting session with a student who's never painted before, like ever, not just oils, but just never painted. And he's been taking some of our drawing classes. And what's really interesting is, it was the gratification. He achieved something in his oil painting that was really, really well done. And the gratification that came from that was spectacular. You know what I mean? It's like you could see the smile come across his face. He was so ecstatic that he was able to accomplish it. And I think, you know, when you're able to trompe l'oeil, like to fool the eye, right? Like to trick the person into believing that something like what you have on screen that's flat, that, you know, just these basic shapes and rendering with value and chiaroscuro and shading, but it looks three-dimensional. It's almost like joyful, right? It's like, yeah, I tricked you. I was able to portray what I want. And I think there's a lot of joy that comes from being able to achieve that. And I think you hit the nail on the head. And I got to see that with oil painting just a little bit ago. But I tell you, it's been an amazing semester here at the Visual Arts Academy and Studio Thomas. It's been a long time, but I am glad that I get to paint a little bit today. I'm super excited to go in and work on this pillow here. And I want to see if I can make it look fluffy. So I'm going to work making it look fluffy tonight, guys. We'll see if I can do that. Dun, 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 dun.
I think, you know, and again, something like you're working on a complete painting, let's say, but, you know, the study, doing studies and, you know, anything from the very crude sketch to the little bit more detailed or, you know, or further study of something, you know, in your case, even pillows, you know, to grab, you know, pillows and do 25, 30-minute studies one day, you know, of just pillows in different positions and having weight on them, you know, those types of things are also of value. I think a lot of times, you know, we want to just go straight to creating a finished piece, but, you know, a lot of it is knowledge that we have to gain through the process of creating. And that can avoid also frustration at some, you know, at some points of trying to just go straight to a finished piece, which sometimes it comes out naturally. And I think, you know, doing a complete finished piece is great. You know, it's very gratifying. But what I'm getting to is getting into the habit of doing studies as a finished exercise. You know, I think that's also something important for everybody to constantly apply.
Oh, I agree 1,000%. I think it's even more valuable. I think you're being modest with your emphasis on that, honestly, because the studies are how you achieve excellence when you go to complete a finished piece. You know, we do a lesson. I do a lesson very early on in a drawing 101 class where we draw apples. And I give people 60 seconds to draw an apple. I go, okay, I'm going to time you. I let them know. And I go, hey, I want you to put graphite on paper, take all the things that we just learned in the previous hour and draw an apple in 60 seconds. And it's funny because, you know, I do it along with them and they go, well, gosh, you know, look at your apple. Look what you did in 60 seconds. And I go, do you know how many times I've drawn an apple? And they go, well, a bunch. And I go, and how many times have you drawn an apple? And they go, well, this is my first time. I go, exactly, right? And to your point, Thomas, I think that the brain catalogs that information. So as you mentioned about the pillow, the more practices, and I've drawn quite a few pillows over the years, but the more practices that you do of pillows, the more accurate you're going to get and the more satisfied you're going to be when you go to do a quote unquote finished piece. And I mean, even if you look at the great masters, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, Bud, but the great masters did enormous amounts of studies. Look at Da Vinci's sketchbook. Look at Michelangelo's sketches, Raphael. I mean, all of the great masters, even some of the modern artists, right? The more contemporary artists, look at you know, all these other individuals. It's amazing to see what happens and what goes into the planning process, and it helps your work significantly.
Yes, completely. In fact, today, the Tate Museum in London, they have, you know, their YouTube videos, just like most museums do. But one I saw today was about William Turner's little sketchbooks that he carried around. And, you know, most of them were pencil or limited watercolor palettes. One was, you know, tiny pocketbook sketchbook. The other one was like an under the arm. But with the tiny one, it was interesting to see how, you know, he's just trying to capture information and, you know, everything from observing how people are dressed, you know, to also what I mentioned about the figure and the pose and how weight, you know, the weight balance relationship functions. But just gathering all this information, and even not as, you know, it had to be really quick sketches. And landscape stuff, you know, his landscapes, which, you know, kind of led into modern day impressionism and abstraction a little bit. But, you know, you really see there where he's just able to capture what he needs to capture, the information. And that practice, you know, again, it's not a finished, you know, drawing. It's just an exercise that was completed in the adequate manner for him to register this process of painting that landscape, of understanding the colors and color theory of, a particular moment of light,
100%.
and that's exactly what we're coming to, drawing the apple, which again, it's funny, the apple exercise, the mind wants to start drawing the apple that's in your memory from childhood,
Yes.
not actually the object that's in front of you. And, teaching people to forget how to see what's in their memory bank and create a new memory bank, but through strict observation and, in practice observation. So what I mean by that is that you're not only looking at the object, you're drawing it, you're creating a memory of it, a drawn memory, a tangible memory.
I agree. I got two things I want to say that, but before we go any further, big shout out to Daniel Cotto for joining us this evening. Great to see you on here, bud. Thanks for the comment and really appreciate the positivity. We appreciate you greatly, and thanks for jumping on. Hopefully we provide a really good experience for you guys. Get your sketchbooks out, get your drawing pads out, get a painting in front of you. The goal with these V.A.A.S live sessions is to create together. So let us know what you're working on. Cotto, it's great to see you. Everybody over here on Instagram, I'm not going to pronounce half of these names right, guys, so I'm not even going to go into them. If you follow along with us, you'll find that I am from Kentucky, which is a wonderful thing, but I kind of marble things in my mouth a little bit. And so some of these names, I'm not going to get them right. But thank you guys for joining us there. Everybody over on Twitch, everybody on YouTube, X, Facebook, we're so grateful you guys are joining us tonight. It's a wonderful experience. We're currently talking about the benefits of practice. And yes, I'm talking about practice. Any sports fanatics out there, you'll get the Allen Iverson reference. But we're talking about practice or sketches or studies. And we really refer to them more as studies and how they help us become a much better artist. And Thomas, I'm going to dive back into that comment about the apple, because there's a funny thing that happens earlier in that practice. Before I make them do the 60-second sketch, I say, hey, guys, somebody asked me to draw an apple. And they go, hey, Seth, draw me an apple. And I go very quickly and draw them an apple. But as you mentioned, I draw the outline contour of an apple, and and they go, oh, that's a pretty good apple. And I go, but it's not my apple that I was drawing. It's an icon of an apple. Right. It's what we think an apple looks like. It's not actually the apple I have. And for a lot of artists, it's a very eye-opening moment, because they go, oh, right. You're right. That doesn't look like the apple that's in front of me. It's what I've cataloged as this representation of what I think it is. And then I go on to explain to them, and most artists, if you're following us here and you've ever taken an art class, you will have had a professor or a teacher or a friend say, draw what you see, not what you think you see. And we all kind of go, huh? But really what Thomas just explained is exactly what that saying means, right? Is don't draw what you've cataloged in your mind. Take what you've cataloged in your mind, but draw accurately what's in front of you and truly draw what you see. And the way to do that better, Tom, is studies.
Exactly. I agree.
But I think oftentimes, I was just going to say, I think oftentimes, people think that there's more value in a quote unquote completed work of art. And you and I both love to collect artwork, right? You and I love to see the artist's process. And don't you think there's something really special about truly seeing underneath the work of the artist, right? Like, I love completed pieces. They're amazing. But boy, if you see a beautiful sketch from an artist, it's like, wow. You know what I mean?
Well, and there's just, so much more information about their personal approach to that subject matter, to the challenge of, correctly drawing or capturing what they're observing, right? And, I think also as professors, that's a key element that we like to have people learn, is this ability to observe, to correctly, capture, and then have this kind of memory bank. Because again, like all things with knowledge, the more you have, the more expansive your creativity can become. And I'm not saying then that you should always, draw from real life, because definitely once you've drawn, in the case of the apple, enough apples, now you can insert one from that different type of memory. And in your case also, as more on the illustration and world and all that, you need to draw on a lot of memory sometimes, or the ability to even change something, with the artistic license to apply what you want to apply to, the object.
Well, oh man, now you're getting me all excited, bud, because then you move into the concept of, yes, I'm drawing my reference, but as Alvarez would always yell at me, not really yell, I shouldn't say yell, but like he would lecture on is, you have to be better than your reference, right? And that's what you're getting at. You're saying like, yes, but you get to make conscious decisions. Oh, I don't like the stem of this apple. Let's say it's too short, it's small, and I want a more prolific stem. Well, I've drawn other stems that are taller, longer, more robust. I can manipulate my reference to give me the stem that I want. So all of these are tools in your artistic and creative tool belt, guys, that will help make you a better artist. And so, whether you're doing something abstract like what Thomas has got in front of him, or if you're doing something a little bit more rendered like this portrait of my daughter, all of those tools lead into this. And so that's where all of those studies, all of those practices, all that effort that goes into it help make you significantly better and get you there. So I hope that you're practicing right now. I hope you've got your sketchbook and your pens out in front of you, or your paints. Let us know you're here. Kodo, thanks for letting us know you're here. Everybody else over there, DI1289, thanks for joining us over just recently on Instagram. We're so grateful that you joined us. There's probably something there that I don't know what that means, but thanks for joining us over there. We're so grateful for you guys. Again, I'm Seth Jones, and this is Thomas Tupper, the co-founders of the Visual Arts Academy and Studio, and we're so glad that you joined us this evening. We are painting and moving and grooving. And Tom, I'm really liking that rendering that you've got, but it is something unique. I'm going to blow this up for everybody, because if you guys look at this, you can see. Yeah, no, I mean, I think we've got it there, but you are so very subtly building these layers, right? Like a lot of people want to go in very heavy-handed and really, and sometimes it's okay, but you're really subtly kind of adding graphite down very loosely and then tightening up. Is that right?
Correct. This is an area right here where I'm working on, where I had just a lot of dark value, but now I've come back and started to strip away, because now I'm creating this kind of almost the joint reflection of different shapes that are in the area. And so I want to now start thinking of how that's going to maybe create this middle zone of dark value in what otherwise would just be completely, kind of a spherical type dark value like it is on this one piece here. But here I'm kind of assuming that we have a bit of reflection of light bouncing off. And, that's where you really want to start using light and shadow to your advantage to start creating that volumetric, more 3D, approach to this drawing. And again, this could easily be substituted for a person's arm, leg, a bald head, even somebody's cheek or nose. Those are places where, it's normally a very smooth type of approach to how light would fall, except if you add something nearby, a white t-shirt, let's say, that's going to reflect, and it's going to now create kind of this confrontation of shadow or light, and you need to start, dealing with that. Again, this is from observing and making drawings of lots of other objects, from the famous apples to, drawing figures and looking at how light drops onto, the top of your arm and then makes a shadow, a slight shadow. But then if there's a dark, light object, you'll get that reflection. So, and again, my background in photography also has, gives me a lot of visual information that I can apply when I decide to do something more abstract like this.
So you mean to tell me that you think that, because this is something I was literally talking about with one of our drawing students, is that all of those foundational principles of design, right? We talk about the elements of art and principles of art, or principles of design. All of those things translate over into different mediums, right? I mean, it's not just, composition and layout. He literally, this gentleman goes, man, when I thought of like composition and layout, I really thought of like photography and film. And then in his painting today, he goes, but it's applicable right here too. He's like, Seth, you were telling me this. I'm like, yes. It's not specific to one medium. You can utilize this across the board.
Correct. Yeah, definitely. It goes across the board. And, I think, again, a lot of I think the goal behind it all is to give yourself more freedom, creatively speaking, to push things in different directions, and when you have those references of how one concept can apply to, sculpture, photography, painting, film, dance, I mean, everything just kind of melds in, and there's ways for you to now observe that same object, or create that, idea that you have, but with a bigger arsenal on the creative side.
Yep. I agree. Dun, dun, dun. I'm going to try to keep moving some of this paint around.
All right.
One of the things I've fallen in love with, Tom, real quick, is the fact that oils stay wet. They do not dry very fast like acrylics.
Mm-hmm.
And I can place some of this paint and then just keep moving it, which is so satisfying. But what were you going to say, bud? Sorry to cut you off there.
No, I was just going to see how your pillow is coming along.
It's getting there. I've really kind of started this section down here by, I'll take it full screen so you guys can kind of see. So I've really started with this like crunching underneath of her pillow under her shoulder and her arm. And so I'm really kind of working on this area here, but it's all about those little subtle folds, right? It's like those little bitty folds that accent those little bitty adjustments, because really what's going to happen is once I get into this bigger area, it's going to be bigger sections of color or value. And so that's hopefully going to soften it up, because these little folds, these little crunches are what make it feel like it's falling underneath of her. The weight of her body is crunching this pillow. And so I really want to try to achieve that pretty well, because when it opens up and it starts to get quote unquote fluffy, it's got to feel fluffy. And if you don't have the contrast, if you don't have the crunch, then the fluffy doesn't matter, right? Then all of a sudden it just kind of becomes and I don't want that to happen. We really want to make it have weight to it, like you were saying earlier. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. We'll see if I can get there with it. I'm hoping to push it pretty good. But it's honestly a lot of fun, Tom. I really enjoy this, and I'm being really kind of looser in these earlier stages, and I feel like it's working pretty well. I feel like it's really starting to kind of get there.
And in this case, the underpainting, you didn't worry so much about the folds and kind of that detail. You were just
I'm trying to. Yep.
Sorry,
go ahead.
You're just blocking in a little bit more on general tones.
That is correct. And now you can be with this imprimatur or underpainting or the grisaille. I could be as detailed as I want, or I can loosen up a little bit, right? And so I am trying to be a little bit more quote unquote painterly. I'm trying to just kind of block in the shapes, block in the values, but I'm going to pick and choose areas where I want to be a little bit more rendered, right? So like on her eyes and maybe her nose and her lips, I'm going to render a little bit better on this underpainting. Whereas on these folds of this shirt and the pillow, I'm trying to force myself to loosen up and to be a little bit more loose, because as I build on the glazes, I can tighten up with more opaque paint and the values of color. And so I think there's a good energy and movement by staying loose. But then when I get into the nose, the eyelids, and the lips, I'll render a little bit more, Tom, and I'll be a little bit more focused on that, so that when I go to glaze it, it pops, right? There's that contrast of tightness and looseness.
Yeah.
We'll see if I can achieve it. I hope I can. Let me know what you guys think of this. You like this so far? I'm loving what Thomas is drawing over there, and you guys let us know what you think of the process. If you like it, you don't like it, let us know. Now, one of the things that you're going to notice, and I could probably shift, is I could probably go to a bigger brush here in a second. So as I'm working on some of these folds, I'm using a nice small to medium-sized flat or rounded flat, and I'm kind of working it in. But as I get to these bigger sections, there's no real point in me using a real small brush, right? You know what I mean, Tom? Like, I might as well shift to a bigger brush, get more if I would just kind of, it's not wasting time by any means, right? But if I'm wanting to stay loose, that bigger brush is going to help me be loose for that bigger section.
Yeah. And not overwork either. I think
Correct.
Come back later and not have a completely finished, one little part of your painting be almost ready to completion and the rest, be so far away.
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, and it's working the whole piece, right, Tom? I mean, like, exactly. It's working the whole piece. And what I was explaining, we were doing a landscape of a beachscape yesterday,
Mhm.
And the student's like, oh, I really don't like this spot. I don't like how this is looking. And I'm sitting there going, well, wait. They're like, I need to change it. I go, no. Work the whole piece, right? Give us a chance to see how this resonates with the sky and with the clouds before you say, oh, no, this is awful. Next thing you know, they came in today to work on it a little bit, and they're going, oh, wow, actually, yeah, I do kind of like it now that I've put this in and this in. So work that whole piece. We say a lot, and you say this a lot, trust the process, right?
Right.
Trust the process, trust the methodology, and give yourself a chance to work that whole area. And so giving myself that bigger brush, as you mentioned, I think is going to help me tremendously with that.
Yeah. Yeah, the composition, you don't want it to become unilateral, let's say, in that sense, where you definitely need to continue, especially when you're starting to apply, certain colors or dark values. You want to make sure you're spreading those out. Otherwise, you might underwork or overwork in one area. And or like in the case of that person that you just mentioned, they're just too close to it. They don't see it. They come back and, a day later, and then you see, okay, no, it's what it needed was just more work on a different area to kind of balance out what maybe seemed off.
Yep. Well, I think you just made a good point too. Sometimes you're just too close to it. I mean, it's happened here a lot in the academy because a lot of our classes only meet once a week, right? And then they come back the next week. So they come back 6 days later and they go, gosh, that looks a lot better than I remember it. And I go, oh, they're like, and literally, I had one student, you're going to die at this, Tom. Literally, a student goes, did you paint that? Did you work on that? I'm like, what are you talking about? Why would I ever touch it? No, of course not. That's what you did last class. Yeah. And I told you it was good. You just didn't want to believe me. But now that they got away from it and they come back, now they like it, a lot more. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. Well, and I think confidence, is a process that is built while you learn, to create, to expand your skill set and all that. But, to that person's kind of ease, I think you and I still feel those same feelings on a regular basis, that it's not coming out well. But, again, it's trusting the process. It's continuing on solving what's in front of you, going, not trying to speed through it, and being a little bit analytical about,
Yep, for sure.
Like you just, did that right now with saying, change up the brush size, and that's going to help you at this stage,
Yep.
I had to change my pencil because it kept breaking. Apparently the lead inside is, from this point on, is broken. So, which is also a challenge because it's a different brand of pencil, and each one has, its different feel and approach. So, but at the same time, that keeps me on my feet, on my toes, and it's a little bit more dynamic for me. And again, I have to also remind myself, I'm trying to just.
Oh, I think we lost you there. We lost Tom. Hopefully he comes back here in a second. If you guys can still hear me, hopefully Tom is going to jump back in. We'll get him connected. Looks like we lost him there for a second. Or maybe I'm frozen. Maybe you guys can't hear me either. Let me know if you're listening live. Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear Thomas. We'll see if he's jumped in or jumped out. Let me know if you guys can hear us. Give us a little feedback here. Let us know if we're still live for you guys. Hopefully we're not having any technical issues. And we're working, hopefully, and we're still going. We're going to see. Yep, looks like we lost Tom. He's going to hopefully jump back, which is tough because, man, I feel like he was making some really good points there about the materials being used, things of that nature. There he is.
Don't know what happened there.
That's all right. We lost you there for a minute. It's all right. Our audience just was getting a little coffee break or a little tea break, maybe a little soda, or maybe even some wine or beer. I don't know. I don't know what you got going on a Saturday night, especially in some of the parts of the world. We're so fortunate, Tom, that we have people joining us from all over the world. It's amazing to think that, people are creating with us in different areas, and we're so glad that you guys are. I hope you have your sketchbooks out. You're creating with us. Ask us questions. We really do love when you guys get involved, when you guys let us know that you're here, you're engaged with us. maybe that you're creating. We have some students that will let us know exactly what they're working on. And it's really neat, Tom. I mean, we get some of the most unique things that I never knew people could do. We have people that are making, all kinds of stuff, whether they're sewing, sculpting. We had somebody talking about the other day, gosh, what was it? They were like weaving in carpentry, almost like it's the carpet guns where they're making rugs and things. I mean, it's pretty spectacular, some of the work that our viewers are doing, man. It's amazing.
That's great.
Oh, and thank you, Caitlin. Caitlin was let us know. She was like, you can hear us, but Thomas is frozen. So hopefully we got that figured out. Oh, also, too, I don't know how to say that name. Joe, I don't know how to say it. But thank you for letting us know that Thomas had froze as well. We really appreciate the feedback, guys. Sometimes it's difficult when you don't know if it's our technical issue on our end or maybe perhaps on the feed. But we've got Thomas back. And Thomas, you were talking a little bit about like the tools of the trade, right? The craft, having the pencils, kind of changing up some of your leads, things of that nature. How important is it to have appropriate tools when you're working? I mean, you see some people and they're like, oh, I could use, I don't know, there's this new craze on Instagram and social media where it's like $1 pencil, $100 pencil, and they do these drawings. But there is some truth in the fact that sometimes your materials do matter, don't you think?
I definitely do agree. I think some just have a different feel to them. It's hard to describe in some cases, like with the pencil. I mean, sometimes it's just something simple like the density of the wood that covers the graphite. And it just, the feel in hand, just kind of like the balance, the weight, all that. I think you need to find what you like to use. I would say the counter argument, sure, you can definitely create very similar. Whether it's a little bit more challenging also will depend on the person. I mean, some people are just more skilled at, grabbing, an expensive brush versus a cheaper brush and having the same result. But I think once you find what you're comfortable with and what you like to use, then, that becomes almost like part of your signature, so it actually doesn't impede you anymore. But I mean, definitely exploring, playing around, trying different things I would encourage that for sure, especially at the beginning. And then once you know what you like, you kind of now just have a good base of saying, well, I know exactly. It's kind of like driving a car. I mean, you could drive multiple cars and have the same result in terms of how you get there and time wise and all that. But, once you learn to really, manage one car, you understand it a lot better. And so when you want to do more challenging, things, especially in drawing and painting, you can rely on your tools. And I think that's important.
I absolutely loved how you said it almost kind of becomes part of your signature or part of you. And the reason I love that, Tom, is because a lot of times I will give the analogy that it's very similar to musicians like guitarists, right? Can you pick up a guitar that's, very inexpensive, very cheap and make beautiful music with it? Absolutely. But most musicians will tell you, I have multiple guitars, but I use this one for this sound, or I use that one for that sound, or boy, this is Jimi Hendrix's signature sound, right? Or Nirvana's signature sound, the Stratocaster or whatever. Or you think of like Paul McCartney with his, was it the Gibson bass, I think, or whatever it was? Or I apologize for all you music lovers out there, but it's almost like people don't question it when it's music, but when it becomes a pencil or a paintbrush, people go, oh, that's a little weird. But it's the tools of the trade. And I loved how you said it does kind of become part of your signature, right? And so I think it's interesting because as time progresses, I've become a little bit more picky about my tools that I use. And I think part of it is just the experimentation that's happened over the years. And I think it's partially become part of what I create and how I create. And I loved how you said it. It just becomes part of that signature process. I want to give a huge shout out to Brosa Palazzo. Thanks for jumping on, brother. Great to see you. Jimena, wonderful to see you guys jumping on. It's so exciting to see people that you know and love join and watch and just, be on here with us, Thomas. And even for all of you people that we don't know, I can't pronounce half of the names that are on here for usernames, but you guys are amazing. Thanks for joining us. All of you over there on Twitch, all of you on X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We love all of you guys, and we hope you're enjoying watching us create. Ask us questions. Let us know what you're working on, what you're creating. And Thomas, here in Louisville, school is out, buddy. We have a ton of students that are creating artwork. They're signing up for summer camps. They're getting excited. Today we did an acrylic painting class with young artists ages 6 to 10, and it was wild, brother. There was, I think I saw paint on elbows, paints on eyebrows. We had ponytails with paint in it. It was absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
That's great.
Well, here we go. Hold on. We got a couple of comments. I gotta put this. You guys, the Instagram doesn't feed into this system, so I've got to read them to you. It's the wizard, not the wand. Brosa Palazzo dropping some wisdom there as far as tools are concerned. And then we've got Kodo going, it's the pilot, not the plane. Geez, guys, you guys make this look easy. You guys just throwing these out here like it's something easy. Thomas and I took 15 minutes to articulate it in a way that made sense. And you guys just throw those both out. So thank you, Brosa Palazzo. Thank you, Kodo. We really appreciate you guys. I'm going to say them again. It's the wizard, not the wand. It's the pilot, not the plane. I think both of you gentlemen are absolutely correct. But I will say this. The wizard has to have the wand, and the pilot's not a pilot without the plane. So the tools of the trade do make a difference, but let's not forget who's using those tools, right? And I think it's a brilliant concept, and I appreciate you guys chiming in so much. So wonderful to have all of you guys joining and watching with us. Any thoughts on those comments, Tom?
I agree. I mean, I guess we could debate back and forth, and but the point is, it starts with you, and you definitely need to find what feels right for you. And some people are just confident or skilled enough with whatever they want to pick up, and that's awesome. That's an attribute as well.
I will say this, and it's not really argumentative, I don't think. But like there are certain brands of materials that have better quality pigmentation or better, binder to pigment ratios that you're able to do things better. I mean, like for instance, I'm a huge fan of Prismacolor color pencils, right? They have a high pigment ratio. They have a really soft binder. You can blend with those color pencils significantly better than you can most brands. Not all brands, but most brands. So there are some techniques and skills that I'm able to teach with a quality of that magnitude that you can't get with something that's like 90% wax and 10% pigment, right? So some skills, some techniques do rely on a better quality tool, at least in my opinion.
I think so. I mean, again, and when you find with experience, you understand why, I think.
Oh, good point. If you don't have that experience, you don't really appreciate it.
Well, and I'll tell you my experience with, especially acrylics. I think oils they tend to be more forgiving brand to brand. I mean, I know there is quality, but I think acrylic, because of the quick drying nature of it, you quickly find out, or what I found out was that it really comes down to colors. Some colors in some brands are just not very forgiving,
I agree.
Especially when you get into like purples that are, very synthetic, because we don't create purple from natural elements anymore, right? So it's all lab, and they can get very sticky really quickly. And
yeah, I feel that way with a lot of blues as well too now. Like I feel like not all from brand to brand a good cerulean's different, or in your case, you're talking about like with a dioxazine purple, or a quinacondrine or something like that. From brand to brand, they are very different. And that I was literally telling one of our students who just went and purchased his own first set of oils. He was like, why does this one look different than the other one? I go, because it's going to be. And he's like, no, it's the same name. I'm like, but it's not, buddy. It's not. You're going to get a different pigment quality. One may be more warm, one may be more cool. And he's like, well, how do you know that? And it's kind of what you said. It's practice and experimentation and doing really good studies with it. A lot of artists will pick very limited palettes, right? They'll find their 5 or 6 pigments that they know, love, and trust and like, and then they work from there, right? They may include, some different pigments that they purchase, but really they find those pigments that they like, they work with, especially in painting. I should say, especially in the painting world, right? Where they'll go, hey, here's my 5 or 6 pigments, and that's what I'm going to create with. And then they latch onto the brands, and they stay very loyal to them because they know what they're getting.
Oh, yeah.
I agree with that. I think similarly with brush manufacturers, right? That's why you're seeing a lot of independent brushes come into existence. And we're talking about carrying our own line of brushes here at the Academy as well, because there is a lot of inconsistency with brushes, and I think it's something that a lot of our students have, talked about. They're like, well, I went and bought this brush and it fell apart on me, or, I washed it once and half of the bristles came out, or, why am I not able to get this shape? And some of it's brush maintenance, right? Some of it's, taking care of your brushes and things of that magnitude. But I think a lot of them are just concerned at investing the money and not knowing what they get. But I tell them, well, you got to play to know what you want, right? If you don't experiment with it, you don't know what's going to work for you. Man, this is coming along. Boy, painting with you, I'm going to have to give our humble wizard, Chad Nuss, I'm going to have to give him some crap, because, man, I get a ton of work done when you're on here. When he's on here, all I have to do is just talk the whole time. Chad, if you're watching, we got some work to do when you join us back, brother. No, we miss Chad. He's out today. He's taking the evening off from the live stream. We're very glad that he's out there getting to experience some family time and doing things of that nature. But our humble wizard will be joining us. We've got some other individuals lined up. Thomas, I know you've been working, getting some different artists that's going to be joining us, hopefully. We've got a couple of students, and I cannot wait to get a couple of students on here for you guys, because you're not going to get it from mine or Thomas's, the co-founders of the Academy's perspective. You're going to get it straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. I am here in Kentucky. We use a lot of horse analogies and metaphors. You're going to get it straight from the horse's mouth. But more importantly, I think it's healthy if you're a new student, if you're trying to get into art, it can be intimidating, right? Thomas, you can watch me paint, you can watch Thomas draw or Chad draw, and you can be like, well, I'm not going to start because I can't get there. That's not true. I can't wait for you to hear from the student perspective of people that haven't drawn in 15, 20 years that are going, man, this is great. I'm so excited to jump in. I think you're going to love it. And then also, too, we're going to get our apprentice, Layla, on here. She's a phenomenal young artist, just soaking up all the information. We're so glad to have so many people willing to jump on and share their thoughts and their creativity with you. And hopefully you're going to join us and follow us each week. This is usually Saturday nights, 6 to 8 p.m. Every week we do our V.A.A.S. Lives. And Tom, this is a big one, buddy. This is episode 25. This is 25 episodes of the V.A.A.S. live stream. I can't even believe it. How cool is it that we've reached 25 episodes so far?
It's amazing. I mean, it shows how much fun we're having with this process, with setting up the Academy, really, providing a great atmosphere and environment, and training all ages in, art, and from all, parts in their art journey, from, newcomers to art to veterans. But yeah, we hope this community keeps growing and that we can become more dynamic as well, even with the lives,
Absolutely. I had a really cool experience today, Tom. It was amazing. I had a young student come by. They had seen some of our videos. They came in with their mother and grandfather, and their grandfather has been an artist his entire life.
Nice.
And they came in for the young lady, right? And she's a teen artist. And it was cool because she lit up when she walked into the Academy, but her grandfather was glowing. You know what I mean? Like they're from a Cuban family, and when he came into the Academy, he was like, I want to paint here, and I'm like, yes, you should. This place is for everyone, right? And so to your point, you have young artists that are still on their journey, that are getting out there, but then even veteran artists who have been painting their entire lives. It's so cool to be a part of a community. It's just so powerful. And you've said it, it's something that's resonated with me for over 20 years. You don't have to create alone, right? You don't have to create in isolation. And it was wonderful to see them glow and just get really excited to become members of the V.A.A.S. community. And that's what we're here for, right? We're here for their creative journeys and to help guide them along the way. And when you see that success and you see that joy that comes with it, it makes it all worth it.
And for them to become part of our creative journeys, because this is definitely, a turning point for us as individual artists. It's, it pushes us to, rethink on the basics, the teaching part, the leadership, the mentorship, and, to reassess, how we approach the challenge, the visual challenge, when we're doing our own work. I think it puts us in that perspective constantly of, okay, what is it here that is the main concept as I'm creating this that I need to keep in mind for myself, but also if, I want to teach this. And I think that's just a great kind of back and forth that's been created.
I agree. I mean, you and I talk extensively, but I mean, I've become a much better instructor in the last 8 months. I mean,
Right.
significantly so. And that's because of the feedback and because of the students. It's not even, I mean, it is my journey, right, as an instructor, but it's because of the students that I've become a much better instructor.
Mhm.
And I, my saying that I have, and kind of the adopted saying for the academy, is ancora imparo. Still, we are learning. We are going to constantly be learning. I mean, I learn something new almost every day. When an artist that comes in that's never painted before and they're in their late 80s and they come in and they're like, well, why do we do it this way? And I go, that's a really good question. Let's dive into that a little bit more, because I haven't thought about why that's done that way. I've just always been told it was that way. Next thing you know, we're starting investigating 6, 7, 8 different ways of doing something, and you find one that you go, this is amazing. Why haven't I been doing it this way for all these years? Right. And so you're always kind of growing and learning. And to your point, it's not one-sided, man. It's a whole community. It's a whole collective journey. And I think that's incredibly special.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Well, guys, Thomas and I, we get going. We could talk. He and I do talk for hours. If you don't know, we were college roommates. We've been best friends for over 20 some odd years. Brothers, you might say. I would say it. I think he would say it as well. And the whole thing is we could do this probably for a good 8 or 9 hours. Our wives might tell us to, like, hey, turn it off. You guys got to come and hang out, go to dinner, do something else. So we just love this, but we love it because we're getting to do it with you. So make sure you chime in. Let us know you're here. Give us a like, follow, a share. We're so excited for you guys. Here in the States, it's Memorial Day weekend. We hope you're getting into the holiday season, getting into, remembering all those who served for us here in the States. Every country has those who serve for them in some fashion or form. And we're so grateful for everybody of every country, everywhere, that supports the people of their communities. And hopefully everybody's having a wonderful weekend. Thomas, in Costa Rica, you said the weather's nice. Is it still rainy season, or are you guys starting to come out a little bit?
No, we're starting rainy season. So it's,
starting. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a constant kind of sporadic sun, and then cloudy, and then it'll just rain, maybe a lot of lightning. Yesterday was crazy with the lightning, but today has been calmer, so that's nice. But yeah, we're going into a couple of months of rain here, which isn't bad. It has its charm, right? So, well, living in the tropics, my friend, living in the tropics. We had, unfortunately, here in Kentucky, we had a couple of tornadoes come through not too long ago, and they were pretty damaging. So people are a little bit on edge with that. But right now, as we speak, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous day out. And guys, one of the things I encourage, I actually had somebody ask me, this is a good question for you, Tom. I had a student literally ask me the other day, they go, what would you recommend are the most important, or what would you say, or how would you recommend, if you're creating your own personal studio space, what are the most important factors for creating your own personal studio space? I know what I said, but I'm going to wait and see what you think. So what would you think are some important factors in creating your own personal studio space to work in? I mean, number one is going to be lighting, right? Whether it's going to be artificial or natural light. Then I always I'm kind of I create around mess, an organized disorder, I would say. So I have areas where the mess can accumulate and reshape itself. And then I have, a desk where I tend to keep it pretty minimalist and just do like this setup. And so it's a good kind of always changing. Yeah, I think for me, just feeling comfortable in the space, the lighting is important for sure. What about you? What did you say?
Well, I said lighting as well. I said, having good lighting. Again, I have friends, you have friends that create in all kinds of lighting, right? But typically good lighting is important and it's very helpful. I made the suggestion. I said something that I think some people don't always think about is, especially if it's a home studio, right? Is it's hard to create when you're in that space constantly. So find a way to create a space that transports you into a creative energy, right? So like, yours is having that stuff around it, that organized chaos, right? For me, I like to have inspirational things around me. Like, you guys can laugh if you want, but action figures and comic books and toys and, and cells from other artists and drawings from other artists. I like to be surrounded by things that, motivate me and encourage me to be creative. And it could be different things for other people. Like some people, it's leather bound books, right? Some people it's, artwork. Some people it's, teas or coffees, right? But
Or
find something in your,
possessions,
or what?
family heirlooms and possessions, things, that's always a nice one, kind of things that.
Absolutely. But something that transports you into a creative energy, right? And I think that's different for every single person involved. But when you can find something that does that for you, surround yourself with that in your studio space. It could be records, it could be music, it could be whatever. But surround yourself with that so that when you go to sit down and be creative, and sometimes you're not going to have the energy, right? Sometimes it's hard. You can't just turn that switch on, but your space can help you cultivate that. And I think that's something that people don't often think about. They're like, well, if I have good lighting and I have a room that's dedicated to the studio, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to feel good. I think you have to kind of work on the space to help it make you feel good, right? And to get you in that. And so that was my suggestion to them about it. And I said, I can't tell you what that looks like, and you may not even know what that looks like, but invest the time to find out what that is.
No, I agree. Definitely, you need to have the things that kind of get you into that creative atmosphere, mood. And sometimes even when you have that, finding a small routine to do before, getting into, I think that's also very helpful because, you do need to, part of getting yourself into that mind frame, especially when you have real life going on around you and you're not, you don't have the privilege of being an artist all the time, whether, because of other jobs, obligations, your family, all that. But, if you do have, set aside that you're gonna Saturday evenings with us, if that's your 2 hours, and maybe half an hour before you can sit down and either listen to your 5 favorite songs, but like with your eyes closed, or pump up a few drawings just real quick, freehand, not stressed about it, and then continue on the one that you're trying to really get some work advanced on. But there's a little trick, you got to find your own way, your own little private dance, I guess.
I don't know. It's like we're best friends or something, because I literally said something very similar in the sense of that. When people were asking, we were kind of having this conversation, we were talking through it, and they come in and they go, boy, the studio space just feels so good. And it's my break. It's my break from work each week, right? This is my escape. This is that. And they don't have the freedom to be a creative artist all the time, right? And so it is challenging to break away and with the responsibilities of life and everything else, but know that you can achieve it. And I was literally telling them that, as you said, like maybe it's your 2 hours this week. I said, look, set aside 20 minutes. Start small, right? 20 minutes. Go, okay, I'm going to dedicate 20 minutes this week on Tuesdays, because Tuesdays is the day I can, or whatever. Maybe it's Sunday for you or Saturday. And I'm just going to do as much as I can for 20 minutes. That's it. And they go, and and I've had people go, well, that's really hard, Seth. I've got this, I got that. I go, okay, well, what's your favorite thing to do? And they go, well, I love sitting down and I binge Friends over and over and over. Like, Friends is my favorite TV show. And I usually sit, I'll go, great. That's wonderful. There's comfort in that, right? But instead of watching 2 or 3 episodes a night, take 1 episode off the docket, spend that 22 minutes after commercial breaks or, whatever, and sketch and draw instead. Because if you want to do it, you can find those little nuggets of time. And next thing you know, it becomes easier and easier and easier. And you will feel a sense of accomplishment, right, Tom? I mean, you'll sit there and you'll go, wow, look what I did in 20 minutes. Or some weeks, that 20 minutes, you won't get anything done. But it may be good for your mental health. It may be relaxing for you. It may be just a calmness that you get from it. And then you keep doing it and it becomes habitual. It becomes routine. And then next thing you know, that 20 minutes turns into 40 minutes. And then maybe that's all it ever is for you because of the responsibilities of life. But it's healthy to get away and to make it part of that routine. And I think that's a healthy way to kind of dive into it, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy. I've had people call me and they go, hey, I signed up for this class, but life has kind of gotten in the way. Is there any way I can reschedule? Or, I've heard some tough things too. Like, I'm the caretaker for a family member who's ill, and those are hard things. And I go, absolutely. Don't worry. We will be here to create with you when life allows you to, And so there's some times when life doesn't let you do those things. But I would encourage you that when you do find the moments, when you find those situations that you can make it happen, guys. You will be so rewarded. You will find peace. You will find comfort. You'll find excitement from being creative. Don't just consume content. Be a creator of content.
True. Very much needed today.
Yeah, for me too, buddy. This is awesome. Thank you for doing this with me, man.
No, I'm happy because I've, had trouble finding that space and getting online with you all, and finally made it happen. And I'm very grateful for it.
I think it's a fantastic, and again, one of the things is Chad and I talk about this. We teach a lot of classes, and we have our studios here in the gallery. If you haven't visited us here at the Visual Arts Academy and Studio, don't worry. One of these days, I'm going to give you guys a tour on this live stream. You guys can see our wonderful home that we have built here for the art community. But even when we have our studio spaces here, we're teaching and instructing. And this is a 2-hour window where, yes, I like talking. Anybody that knows me knows I like talking. And so I get to talk with you guys, but I also get to paint. I get more painting done while talking with you guys than I will throughout the entire week. And so as Thomas said, it's not only healthy, I think, for you guys, it's also too, important for us. It's amazing for us to get to do it. I do. Oh, look at this. Seth out here giving motivational speeches. Ah, she's so kind. Now, thank you for the wonderful comment. We're so grateful. And I don't know about a motivational speech. I see it, Tom, and you see it too. And it's part of the reason we built this place, right, buddy? Is you can see how it affects people's lives when they create. You can see what happens to them when they do something they didn't know they could do. It's amazing when you put the energy out there, the universe or life gives it back to you. It rewards you for doing something that makes your heart and your soul sing. And so don't be afraid to try it. Don't be afraid to give it a chance. It's amazing what you'll get from it. I promise you won't be disappointed. And that's whether you're taking classes here with us or just setting aside time in your living room on a weekly basis to create, I don't know, something, right? Pour yourself a good tea. Have fun with it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think going back to that, creating that space, I think that, you mentioned the student and her family member who came in, who was older.
Yes.
We've created that space at the Academy where, that was the intention, that you really walk in and you're instantly transported into this space that you just feel good about and about yourself. And you're motivated to sit down and, challenge yourself and try new things and work on, your projects. So.
Well, we've had a parent who's had their daughter enrolled here for probably almost the entire 6 months. And it's been 6 months, and he finally approached me and goes, Can I pick a record? Can I put a record on? I'm like, absolutely. This space is your space. He's like, right on, and next thing you know, he picks out the Beatles, nice. He puts it on. I'm sitting there going, yeah, buddy, now we're talking, right? Because for him, music is his creative outlet, right? Like, he loves it. And it's awesome to see those creative energies go, whether it's the music that's put on or the artwork that's showing or the books that are there. We have a huge library in our lounge and reception, and people go, half these books aren't art books. Why do you have them here? Because they're motivational. They're inspiring. Right. I have a series of books by Brian Jakes called the Redwall series. If anybody's read it, please let me know. Raise your hand. Let us know you've read it. He's a British writer. And when I was a kid, Tom, they were so descriptive that I just wanted to draw everything that was in there. And so I put them here because that may motivate another young artist to write or to be creative. And so we have this entire space, to motivate and to create that energy that you're talking about. We've got this one. The amount of the records at the studio is so awesome. Thank you. We appreciate that too. We agree. We think that and it's always growing because look, Tom, here you go. I had a young lady, she's 7 years old, taking a painting class with us. And I said, would you like some music? And she goes, why, yes, I would. I go, fantastic. Anything specific that you'd like to listen to? And she goes, do you have any Ella Fitzgerald? And I'm like, oh, yes, ma'am. I got me some Ella Fitzgerald. And she goes, by chance, do you have the album of Ella Fitzgerald with Louis Armstrong? And I go, oh, girlfriend, we are going to rock out today while we paint. And it just blows my mind because even at such a young age, music is such an influential factor, not only in life, but for visual artists too. Music has been a huge part of your life. I mean, and I know this, some of you viewers may not know this, but music has been a huge part of Thomas's life. Whether it's, actual music or dance. Dance is another big part. Now you're a Latin, so I feel like that's pretty common there. But I mean, what does music mean to you as a visual artist?
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely. I grew up playing the piano and then had a rock band and all that. But just the performance side, and I think from our generation growing up with the way music was presented, which was not as accessible, right? You had to really save up your money, go get the tape or CD or whatever it was, but also the whole packaging of it, that was, a big part
Oh
of
yeah,
music,
the album art
and your experience. Yeah. And, but definitely I think music is that, just this international, a tool that allows people from around the world to tune into the same or be in synchronicity, and as art is, as well. But two different people from different cultures, different backgrounds can enjoy the same music, the same art piece, the same painting, by the same artist. And, it's just that feeling connected to this giant organism that is the world, what you were saying about, feeling good, creating. I think when you get into that space of creating, you're ultimately kind of tapping into just what connects us all at, a very profound level, as, cohabitors of the same reality, basically. And so music really transports you in an abstract way. I mean, it instantly activates your creative, abstract brain and mind. You can't listen to music without having some kind of intangible attachment to it. You're either feeling emotions or you're having, some kind of vision or ideas, So it's just one of those where it really just instantly activates your creativity. If you then kind of complement it to something like creating a painting or a drawing, it's kind of like conversation. You need to obviously know language and words, but our conversation is abstract in the sense, especially like this one, where nothing's scripted. It's we know what we want to talk about. We have our own backgrounds and ideas, and we share similarities, and so that's what allows us to have these discussions. But these discussions are basically abstract conversations, right?
Yep. Well, and so I got a couple of things there. One, I got to get some more oil paint. Excuse me, guys. I've been painting up a storm, Tom. I mean, oh my gosh, I've been so energized. I'm working quick here, buddy.
Nice.
But it's so amazing because like now I want to go in like 4 different directions. But first and foremost, long story short, thanks for joining us over there on Instagram. Some of you individuals over on Twitch, thanks for joining us there. We're so grateful you guys are with us today. It's an amazing day, and Thomas and I are just having a blast. So we're glad that you guys are joining us. We're talking about influences of like music and art and the collective whole. If you haven't read a book, you should find, and I'm going to butcher it, I'm so bad with names, Makoto Fujimura, I think, or Fujimara. He writes this book, and essentially it's about we are called to create, right? Like as beings itself, Tom, we are creative beings, right? Whether that's artistically, musically, food-wise, we are creators in essence, right? We are creative creatures and beings, and it's absolutely a brilliant thing. But then I go back to, you're talking about the influence of music. How often when you listen to a song are you transported back in time or transported back to a moment? Your cognition is remembering this moment or time that you remember something. And for me specifically, I was sitting here thinking about the artwork from Korn's album Follow the Leader that was done by Todd McFarlane. Right. And I remember getting that CD for the first time, looking at that cover artwork, just going, holy moly, this is cool, because I had read his comics, and then I looked at it, I'm like, they have a comic book artist. He's doing the cover. This is Korn. This is amazing, and the artwork was just amazing. The kids running off the cliff playing hopscotch, the girl in the red dress. It was just this amazing thing. So Korn, if you're listening, or Todd McFarlane, amazing job, because it's been stuck with me for over 30 years, and I'm so grateful for it. And so I think music and culture and art, it fires your brain in a different way that that just is unique. Big shout out to Valerie Lawrence. Love you. She says, love the pieces you both are working on. You are so sweet, so kind. We're so grateful that you jumped on and joined us. It's wonderful to see you on the live stream. We're rocking and rolling, guys. Let us know what you're working on. We love your comments. We love your feedback. We love questions asking us how we're going. Because Tom, you're putting in a lot of graphite, buddy. I mean, that's coming along nicely.
Yeah. I'm really kind of focusing on getting that, initial values down, just to, not too concerned with the extreme shading. Just right now, putting in what's my dark value, my, maybe 2 mid values, and then the lighter. And then I'll come back in and, erase a little bit and then blend a lot, with a lot more precision, basically. And I also just wanted to, well, of course, give a shout out to everybody who's on here that we know, and a lot of them are from Costa Rica back home. But long story short, I mean, she's a great artist. She's does some amazing cityscapes with color pencil. She's amazing, and I believe some ink as well. But her color pencil works, so she'd be somebody that I would definitely invite to join us at some point.
Who's that?
Long story short, who joined in a little bit ago. She's a friend from Costa Rica.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I didn't know that. Long story short, yeah, we'd love to have you on. Thomas, that's exciting, man. That'd be wonderful. Please connect with Thomas. We'd love to see what you have. Tell your story. Talk about your artwork. Fantastic. That would be, I didn't know that. That's wonderful news.
Yeah, I think we're getting a lot of people, local people, jumping in today.
Well, I do love my Costa Ricans. I will say, if I could ever live in another location, it would be your beautiful country, my friend. Now, I am a little biased because you're there, and that's part of the reason that I would love to be there. But so many of my friends and loved ones are there also, and it is one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been in. It is just absolutely amazing. The people are so kind, so wonderful, and often it reminds me a little bit of Kentucky, very differently. Nobody laughed, but people are just so kind and so welcoming, and in very different, cultures in a certain per se, I guess. But I always feel like I'm home. Whenever I'm there in Costa Rica, I always just feel so welcome, so invited. The food is amazing. The music is amazing. And the people are just absolutely wonderful. So everybody that's watching from CR, thank you. Little known fact, and maybe I'm going to give too much away. When I was living with Thomas and Hans, his brother, and we were in school together, I used to jokingly call myself a Costa Kentuckian because I so desperately wanted to be a Costa Rican with them. And so I used to tease all the time. I'm like, I'm a Costa Kentuckian. I'm both of these. I belong to these two worlds.
That's right. Forgot about that. There you go. Tune in to corn.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Well, cool. I mean, I've always been blown away by artists, Tom, that can use color pencils so beautifully, because it's such a unique mix, right? So much of it is color theory. So much of it is layering and building those, but you can use them in so many different ways. You can use them, in a very layered sense, a very opaque sense. I really hope Long Story Short does join us, because I'm really excited to really learn about that method and that process. I know that I would learn a lot in that 2-hour session for sure.
Here, I'm gonna go ahead and send you something.
Oh boy, here we go.
I don't know what's your best option, but here we go.
Boy, I am moving and grooving, man. I must be excited today, or it could be the Red Bull.
Are you looking for that sponsorship, or?
I guess. I don't know. I'm just looking for those wings that it gives you. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. That's awesome. All right. See, we're on a live stream together, guys, and yet we're still texting back and forth, because that's how Thomas and I work.
Well, let's just.
Let me see here. Oh, wow. Boy, you weren't kidding.
I know. She's very talented.
Wow. These are lovely. Long story short, I don't know if you're still on with us or not, but man, it would be absolutely wonderful to have you join us. I'm excited. That's amazing. And if you're an artist out there and you have an interest in joining and sharing your love, your passion, your artwork, your creativity with us, the Visual Arts Academy and Studio is a growing community that is global. We really are. And people laugh and they go, are you guys really? We're only 8 months old, but we have friends and followers and a community that truly is global, Thomas, and we are honored by that. And the goal is we want to share your artwork, your skills, your story with everyone, because the community is stronger together. And I really believe that. I personally think a lot of things changed, at least here, and I know it did for a lot of Costa Ricans post-COVID, right? When you couldn't have your community when it was taken, and when you weren't able to be around it, I think I created a much bigger appreciation for having that community, and I think a lot of people yearn for that. And I think a lot of people realize that they themselves want something of that magnitude. So if you're
Right.
an artist and you're interested, reach out to Thomas, reach out to myself, reach out to anybody that's connected here at the Visual Arts Academy and Studio. We'd love to have you on. We'll get you scheduled and we'll talk art with you. Now, Thomas, you know me incredibly well. And people often ask, and they ask my wife quite a bit. I don't know if she's still watching or not, but they're like, is he always this energetic? And I tell people, unfortunately, yes.
Yes, he is.
It's pretty intense the whole time.
I'm wondering what the Red Bull is for. You don't need it.
It's funny you say that, because half the students go, why do you drink those? I don't think you need them. Well, it's funny because our duality, our balance, I suppose, right, is you're always still very calm, still very stoic, and very intellectually driven, where I'm sitting here like, super hyper emotion, super hyper all over the place, and I think it's fun. But when you find, friendships and groups, especially as artists, I think because you're deriving a lot of it from within, right? And I think when you find those kind of friendships and balances, it does push you creatively. I really do believe that. I think it forces you to look at why you're creating what you create and how you create it. And a lot of times it's a great scenario because you can find balance.
That's true. Well, I think, again, a lot is going to be finding way, individuality is very important, but, finding a way to respect each other's individuality, and also one, to be respectful of the other person by not, overpowering, let's say. You can't control how people are, but there's a way to kind of reach that middle point where, I think with a lot of friendships and partnerships, that's how it goes. And, you'll probably see a point where probably don't need any more conversation or hype, but I'll see it the other way, where if you're not hyped up, then I will hype you up, okay, that's where you need that support.
Well, it's a give and take, right? It's a give and take.
Well, and to that, it also, coming back to the community of art, and providing that critique, that's important, that give and take. And I think the give and take is a constant, even within yourself, right? You can't just always be on the negative side, putting yourself down or, hyping yourself up. You got to kind of find that way of, rounding out.
Balance, as you said. Well, and like, gosh, it's almost like you can't script this sometimes, buddy. Like, you can't script like you leading into these stories, because literally today, the gentleman I was telling you about, who did a beautiful first painting, his first painting ever. Sometimes I think people often think that I am just such a cheerleader, right? Like I am very positive. I am, and they're like, well, I think, you're being very kind and you're a coach and you're mentoring and all this stuff. And what's funny is we had two students come down from a class, and unprovoked, right? Like completely unprovoked. They looked at his painting and go, oh, wow, that's amazing. And then I said, do you want to tell him the kicker? And he's like, it's my first painting. And they're like, no way. And then he goes, ever. And they're like, you're kidding me. So like, sometimes you do get that from that community, right? Like, because it's, he was a little bit down on himself because he's like, I don't know, is it really good? Is it not good? He wasn't down per se, but he wasn't up, right? And all of a sudden that feedback from those other students, you could see the glow happen, right? You could see like the excitement of like, man, I am doing well. Like I am creating, like this is a really good painting.
That's good. That's how it is. And again, I think it's what we talked about earlier. It's that stepping back from your mind frame and, thinking, well, if you're the professor and you're trying to give, you think it's just encouragement. And yes, we do give a lot of encouragement, but we're also being quite honest most of the time and telling you, this is really well, executed, and it's something to be proud of. Again, it shouldn't, your concern shouldn't be that it's a masterpiece. It's that the effort that was put in was great, and the lesson learned and the muscle memory and observational skills that you just accomplished are really going to be important if you pursue this.
Yep. I had a student the other day. You're going to love this.
Mm-hmm.
And I promise I didn't mean for it to be like prophetic or anything like that. I was just talking with them, and because they showed me a drawing that they had done, and I was like, oh, this is really nice. And they go, oh, come on. And I go, okay, well, the truth is it's very well done. It's not accurate.
Right.
I think it's not accurate, but it's very well done, because this is your second ever drawing class. I'm not saying it's the most accurate drawing I've ever seen, but it's well executed based at the skill level that you're at, and it's exceptionally good for that skill level that you're at. So yes, you may sit there and say it doesn't look exactly like that bottle of water, but you've executed it at a very successful rate for your skill level for this class. And then all of a sudden light bulbs went off, and they go, that's a great way of putting it, right? Mm-hmm. It's well done, but it's not accurate. And that doesn't mean it's bad.
Exactly. Again, and I mean, a water bottle is a complicated subject matter. I think it's one that has multiple visual challenges that, you need to kind of work through. Just the texture. I mean, if it's a plastic or, smooth surface, whatever the surface is, that's one challenge, is to emulate that. The ellipses, to correctly do the proportions, the ellipse angle, all that, that's another big challenge. And, with more to come, but I think that's maybe how you and I approach it when we're teaching. We're seeing how they're advancing and accomplishing some of the challenges, or all of them, but at small intervals. The point is that the more they do it, some of those will become just second nature, and then they can focus on, all right, how do I properly make this look like glass surface, right? If you're drawing like a glass vase or a glass of water, how do you make a surface look metallic? Or something like concrete, which is, I think, even harder.
Challenging, right? Like all those different textures. But I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's the idea. But again, you and I mean, you've been teaching for a very, very long time, and I as well. It's the idea that, you're looking past the immediacy. You're looking at what the skill set is on a growth pattern, right? Mm-hmm. Or where that drawing will end up being, or where it's going to go. Or, oh, wow, if you achieve this today, it's we've done enough of it to go, well, if you continue down this path, you will be incredibly satisfied with where you are down that road, right? And so I love the idea that the student was able to see through kind of what I was saying in a very positive way, right? And go, oh, I get it now. I understand, right? You're not just being a vocal cheerleader. You're truly assessing and going, this is going to be very nice, or it is very nice where it is, for where it is.
Yeah, the framework that, or groundwork that has been laid down is one that will produce a well-achieved, final production, basically. I think you said something, and don't remember exactly how you said it, but it was about this where, you're able to see, and that's what they maybe don't have the ability yet, is the far down the line, that what has been achieved at any given moment in a drawing or a painting is getting you closer to that later step, right? So it's one of these where you have to be happy with what's been accomplished today, because it'll continue to push you towards that finish line on that piece.
Yep, I agree. I think the other thing too is that sometimes it can be challenging to understand the timing of art, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like this skill takes a lot longer to develop and cultivate than perhaps other skills, right? And so sometimes it's like, well, I achieved such a high rate of success doing, X, Y, or Z. Why isn't A, B, and C coming as quickly? Well, that doesn't mean they're exactly the same, intensities, right? That doesn't mean that they articulate the same exact way. And I think for some, young, or when I say young, I don't mean age, I mean young in experience. For some younger artists, it can be challenging to, come to terms with that, right? Well, I was moving so fast in this. Well, this medium is not going as fast, and therefore I don't want to do it. No. Stay the course. Continue, because it's going to reward. It's just a different learning. Well, that's it. Learning curve, right? It's like skiing and snowboarding. It's like you always used to tell me about skiing and snowboarding, right, buddy?
Yeah.
That, there's a steeper learning curve for one more than the other, but then it plateaus a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, there's just these kind of steps in the process, right? Like actual skill set steps, right? Where you accomplish, one part of the drawing and painting and creating process, but, you might be there for a while. And it's not it can be frustrating, but I don't think it's motivation to stop, right? It's just.
Yep. I agree.
It's just
and
like
sometimes it is challenging. Sometimes you feel stagnant, right? Or complacent.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the goal is to persevere through that, and not just art, but in all aspects of life, right? I mean, sometimes it's tough.
Oh, yeah.
You remember Coach Cummings, right?
Yes, sir.
He used to, Coach, if you're watching, love you. Thank you for all the support. So excited. And Coach is still he is a foundations professor at the Savannah College of Art and Design. He's absolutely brilliant. He's a brilliant artist, brilliant mentor. But he used to say all the time, complacency kills you, right? Don't become complacent. Like, continue to grow, continue to push those boundaries. And oftentimes when you're uncomfortable, that's when a lot of your growth happens. And big shout out to I will still always call him Coach, but it's Mike Cummings, Professor Mike Cummings. But I think there's a lot of truth in that, right, Thomas? A lot of times being in an uncomfortable situation is what pushes you to grow more than you normally would.
That's true.
Especially as an artist.
Yeah, especially as well. Yeah, in a lot of situations, but yeah, you definitely need to. I think when it's uncomfortable is because there's a lesson to be learned and you're shunning away from that, right? And with learning new mediums, I mean, you're definitely stepping out of the comfort zone. If you already achieve, if you're good at watercolor or you're good at acrylic and then you go into watercolor, I think, there's also that element of always being playful in your approach. It's always very helpful because, again, if you're not trying to master it on your first try or day one using a new medium, it becomes a little bit less pressure.
Well, you've harped on me for that ever since our first time drawing together. You were like, why are you trying to complete a piece on your first time? You've never done anything like that. And it was that self-expectation, right? And over the years, I hear you in my mind all the time going, relax. It doesn't have to be a perfect piece. Practice. And you actually, I remember this, and you may not even remember this, but there was one time where, well, there's more than one time where I probably frustrated you, but there was one time when, I was doing sports and I was doing some homework, and you were like, how come you're so willing to practice at sports, but you don't look at art in a practice fashion? And I was like, what do you mean? And you go, well, you will go out and practice 1,000 times before a game, but then you don't want to do a practice before you do a drawing. And I'm like, huh. He's kind of got me there, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm really focusing on this little.
I was going to say, how's the pillow coming? We haven't talked about this pillow.
Yeah, I'll zoom out. Give me 1 second. I'll zoom out here, and you guys can tell me what you think. I need to come back in. I'm getting a little gray. I talk a lot about, controlling your values, really making sure you have full value range. And especially with the grisaille process, it's all about controlling your values, right? Because then you layer on your chroma, you layer on your glazes. But the grisaille is really there, in my opinion, to really figure out your tonality and really drop that in. Make sure your chiaroscuro, your sfumato, all that stuff are really in place. Your lights and darks and your smoke, or the values between values. But here, I'll move it around. We'll see what we got, guys. Let's take a look. You guys can tell me what you think. So we've got, that's the pillow there. I'll zoom out. We'll see if I might go out of frame, but you guys can kind of see that's what's coming along.
Very nice.
And so I think it's really, sorry, go ahead, bud.
No, very nice. I'm looking at it. I like that middle part. Yeah, right there. That's all giving a nice, smooth, pillowy, fluffy feel.
Well, and I think what I got to do, if you guys can see right here, right where it's cresting in her eye, I don't feel like I got to push. That's what I was saying about pushing my values. So this dark value here, if we're looking at a value scale of 1 through 7, which is what I teach here at the Academy, I'm hovering around 5 and 6. And some of this needs to be pushed to a value 7 because this section of the pillow is really hidden underneath her cranium and her cheek, right, Tom?
Yep.
So like, this part right here, I definitely don't think I've gone dark enough because it's not receding. I think it's starting to, right? You get that fold, you get that the pillow's starting to kind of go like this, but I think I need to push my value into, a value 6 and 7 around the orbit of the eye and the cheekbone because I really want it to, I want her weight. If you guys are seeing this at home, her head has to have weight. I don't want her to look like she's floating on the pillow. I want her head to be placed in the pillow, right, guys? Just like Thomas is looking at his values. If you look at his values, it's the same concept. It's the same concept. Even though he's drawing abstract shapes and forms in his drawing, and I'm doing a representation of a pillow, the idea is if you look at that larger bulb on the backside, right where he's at, by pushing that dark value into a value 6 or 7, it's creating form and dimension and depth. And right. that more darker form is hiding behind the one in the midground or the foreground. And I need to achieve that better. Yep, you got it. Right where he's at, guys. You can see it right where his pencil's at. I have to achieve that a little bit better around where that head is hitting that pillow and crevicing down. So just know that and Tom talks about this a lot, it's a constant work and evaluation, right? You're constantly evaluating your values there in your drawing.
Yep, that's correct. Also, though, I will point out that with yours, you might want to consider her cheek. If maybe when you work on that a little bit more, that's going to actually create the pillow value that you have to be pushed into that 7 value.
Which is funny because I think we literally talked about that in the first 30 minutes, didn't we? Yep. Working the whole piece. And I've fallen into it because I've been talking with everybody so deeply here that I'm working this entire section so thoroughly that I can't compare my values because right now there is no value on her cheek. So Tom's right. When I put that cheek on there, it may pop.
Because right now you're comparing a sepia tone value with the grays, right? So that in of itself is creating a flatness compared to the gray multi-valued area that you've got there.
Yep, that's so incredibly true, good sir. So incredibly true. This is why it's good to have a community, everyone. This is why it's so important. And it's just like, one of the most uncomfortable things that we do in all of our classes. All of the instructors here do this. One of the most uncomfortable things, but it's one of the most healthy things, is what just Tom just did for me. Walk around and look at other people's artwork. Walk around with multiple purposes. Walk around with the idea that you can learn from them, right? But then also, too, you could potentially provide feedback that can assist them and help them. It's, a lot of times we think critique is just statement-based. Right? I think critique is more progress based, right, bud? Like it's more of, hey, here's feedback to continue developing and working, not, oh, here's the final piece, it's over, it's done, too bad, here's what I think, it's no longer relevant. No. In progress critiquing is the most important thing. And it's healthy too, because you can learn just as much as you give.
Exactly. And I mean, to add on to what you just said, it's because you were talking about your piece and explaining to viewers and to myself kind of what you're thinking about with pushing that one value right now. That made me analyze, is the issue also that we have sepia next to gray, and the sepia underpainting is just a block, really. It's going to be very flat, so once you give that more detail, then we're going to create that, separation and push the depth, basically.
So you mean the conversation and discussion pushed a philosophy and a thought further in artwork? Who would have thought? No, it's amazing. This is such a joy, Thomas. I'm so grateful for you to be able to join us today. It's such an honor. And it's just such a joy to be able to be here and part of the Visual Arts Academy in studio, everybody. And we're so glad all of you guys have joined us. I mean, it's unbelievable, looking at everybody that's over here on YouTube, everybody that's on Twitch, Thank you guys so much for joining us this evening. We've still got about 30 minutes of creating together, and we're just so glad you're here. Everybody over on Instagram and Facebook as well as X, we're so glad that you guys have joined us. I hope that you're creating. Let us know that what you're working on. We're really excited. We just found out that we've got a really talented color pencil artist that hopefully we can get her to join us. We've got a couple of other individuals, some students, an apprentice. I mean, I feel like I'm in Star Wars or something whenever I say apprentice, but it's awesome. It's like, there's only 2 of the Sith or the Jedi apprentice. And really, she's one with the Force. She's a brilliant young artist. I'm hoping to get her on here. We've got other people as well. And Tom, it's just, honestly, it's very selfish. It's fun to just paint with you for 2 hours, man. This is just a blast.
It's like being back in college.
It is. Thank goodness for technology.
Exactly.
I was telling somebody the other day, one of my students did not believe me, Tom.
Yeah.
I told him, I said, I remember when you had to have a student email to join Facebook, like a college email to join Facebook, and they go, no. And I go, oh, yeah. I remember when it very first came out, and they go, well, now it's only for old people. And I'm like, like dagger in my heart.
For the original users.
That's right. That's right.
Hilarious.
Oh, man. You remember one of the coolest moments. Do you remember when the first iPod came out?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that giant brick.
I think I still have 2 somewhere.
That's man, they're going to be in a museum someday,
Yeah.
Well, I had to take something to the printer for the academy, and I put it on a flash drive, and like the flash drive is like a terabyte flash drive or something, and I'm going, no way, I just had one of those moments of like, oh my goodness.
Well, like digital photography as well, it was it's still in a constant state of evolution, obviously in advancement, but in the years that I was in college and taking photography and just how quickly things change, it's amazing.
Well, So a gentleman here, his daughter's taking art classes here. He attended, I believe it was the Art Institute of Cincinnati or I apologize, I'm blanking at the moment, but he studied photography, Tom.
Right.
And now you had a unique situation when you were studying at university, right?
Right.
Because I believe, correct me if, and I could have this wrong, and I apologize if I do, but you were the last class to actually go through the darkroom, right? Before they made the big switch to digital?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I've heard that they don't have that much analog stuff now, or maybe it's not as required. You might still do it as what, when I was there, they had the alternate processes in photography, which actually meant the older processes like cyanotypes, Polaroid lifts, all kinds of fun stuff, glass plates, which, is now more of a big, what would you call it? Like such a manual art form,
Right. Yeah.
Actually so much more challenging because, getting these things right from the beginning and learning about proper exposure and everything versus now, you just take a quick glance at the screen. It's like, yeah, it didn't turn out right. Just do it again. But yeah, back when I was there, it was definitely, which I love because I like the analog and that kind of hands-on approach to things. And I love the darkroom. So I don't do it anymore, but it definitely, was a great moment for creating. And, we were talking about music earlier and, you'd put on your headphones, not wireless back then. And,
yeah. Well, we've turned into 2 old men. Well, back in my day, we had cables on our headphones.
I like when you said that you're turning things more gray on your painting. I just thought you were talking about your hair, but.
Actually, I don't mind sharing this on here. I'm thinking about shaving my head this weekend, man.
Really?
Yeah, I finally, for some of you guys know this because in some earlier episodes, but I finally decided to grow my hair out one more time because I used to have long hair and I absolutely loved it. And getting to own the art studio, I don't feel like I have to be as cleaned up. I can be a little bit more artsy and a little bit more free. Whereas in the corporate world, I felt like I had to be super clean cut and everything else. And so I decided to grow my hair out one more time. Well, recently I've realized that the back of my head is not full of hair anymore. And I think it may be time to let the skullet go because it's starting to, hence the hat, I suppose. Of course, I love my hat from Wild Hats here in Louisville, Kentucky, but the hair is definitely thinning out on the back there.
Yeah.
And it may be time to let the hair go, buddy. I don't know.
All right. Sorry, I'm just trying to move my camera. I'm going to see if I can zoom out on the tripod. And that might.
Oh, yeah. Let's see what we got. Here, I'll take it full screen.
Sorry about the movement. For the moment.
Oh, it's all good.
Just trying to see how we get this.
Oh, look at that.
Nice. Give me one more adjustment.
Look at that.
Yeah, so this area turned out pretty nice and still needs a lot more work, but I left it up to a certain point, you know, more worked on the bottom here. This I'm going to wait to see. One thing that I need to decide later on is exactly what my light source and the light direction is going to be. And then this bottom part is the bottom right side of my paper, and I don't work that too much until the very end just because I'm right-handed, and at some points I do need to rest my wrist, and so I don't want to just smudge everything. But I'm liking the general composition. It's you know, getting a lot of movement and a little bit different from previous iterations or sketches I've done of this type of work. So
yeah, it's funny you're saying that because I like it's almost like a balloon, like a floral bloom there. And I absolutely love it.
Well, I'll show you. Let me see if I can get this. Well, this video's not in nice as a shape, but
oh yeah, look at that. Let me take that full screen for everybody. Look at that one.
Yeah, so that was one that was done at the end of last year. It's a lot bigger format. And there was more clusters, but it was funny because some elements that came out of that one are now coming through in this one. Kind of I'm pushing now to really get, you know, different kind of little language bits basically developed into it.
I love it. I think it's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, man. Well, I love how diverse and different, you know, so far the people that we've had on the live stream are all very different creators, you know,
right.
And I think that's good. And hopefully you guys as viewers appreciate it as well, because there's so many different unique creative endeavors out there, and yours is just as valid as other people. Right. And we want to see them. We want to talk about them, and it's exciting. I mean, you know, I've loosened up tremendously in this painting process and super excited for it. And Chad's loosened up with his charcoals, you know, and then of course you come in with these really tight rendered abstract shapes. It's a lot of fun to see all the differences. I mean, yeah. I'm pretty excited to see where this drawing that you're working on goes. But I will be honest, and we're probably going to run out of time. But next session, I want to see some of that figurative work that you want to do. I want to see you come in with some of those figurative works, and we'll work on that.
Yeah, I mean, I could switch over. I could leave this and work on a little figurative.
And as we talk about that, we were very fortunate this last week here in the studio, Thursday night, 6 to 8 p.m., we do drop-in drawing, and we were very fortunate to have an incredibly talented ballet dancer join us. She does a lot of different productions, and she joined us, and she was just such a phenomenal model, Thomas. No wonder all the great masters love painting ballerinas, right? Because the poses and the movement and the elegance, it was absolutely amazing. We're so honored that she comes and models. We're honored for all of our models. We have been so fortunate that on our Thursday night live drawing sessions, we just have a group of models that are absolutely spectacular. And I can't wait. I'm going to start really taking some pictures from these live drawing sessions, guys, and sharing them with you, because I think you guys will be blown away by the work that's coming out of these random 2-hour drop-in drawing sessions on Thursday nights. And so if you're in the local area and you're looking to enhance your drawing ability, or if you're looking for a community to draw with, or even some therapeutic moments, right? A chance to kind of just break away and create and draw. We do drop-in drawings here Thursday night, 6 to 8 p.m. It's $20 for the 2 hours. We have some materials if you need it, but you can bring your own materials as well. We sell some art packs, some large-scale papers, charcoal, vine charcoal, things of that nature. But come and draw with us. These Thursday night drop-in drawings are absolutely spectacular, guys. You will love it, and we have just the most amazing models. So if you're one of our models, and I don't know your tag or your name here, thank you for modeling for us, because you're making us a better art academy. You're making us better artists, and it's such a joy to draw you guys. Thank you guys for being our models. We're so appreciative.
I'm just gonna grab a different notebook and I'll do a quick little figure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and when you get back, tell us what it is that you're going to be doing, because I know you mentioned it at the top, at the beginning of the live stream. But for those who have just joined, they may be curious as to what you were switching. So as Thomas is grabbing that, I have been working on an oil painting of my daughter. It's a little bit large. I apologize, I can't remember the exact size of this, but it's a grisaille process, so it's an underpainting, all in grayscale. I'll take it live here for you, big. Let me know what you guys think of this so far. Let's see what you guys think. And so this is a large underpainting done in raw umber and titanium white. It's fairly big, if you guys kind of see that there. I think it's, 24 by 36 perhaps, but you can kind of see, I'll put my hand in here. So you can see my hand size. I'm 5'8", stud muffin here. But this is my average hand size here that you guys can see. So it is a fairly large painting, which is allowing me to be loose. But Thomas was working on an abstract drawing, a rendering of these abstract shapes. It was absolutely fantastic. But now, Tom, you're switching over. And I think you're pretty well set up here. So yes. I'm going to throw this on here for Tom, let him kind of talk us through it. But before I do that, Chad Nuss, sorry I had to miss you guys looking and sounding great. Our humble wizard himself giving us compliments. Chad, we miss you too, buddy. We'll have you next week. Hopefully you're having a wonderful evening and some wonderful family time. We'll see you next week, my friend. Thanks for jumping on, and thanks for everybody jumping on. But Tom, what are you switching now? We've got about 20 minutes or so. What are you switching over to now at this stage?
So I have a photo on my phone I took from a magazine. There's like some spread there, and it's just some people, but it's like a family, but two of the members, they're just very classically posed. And so that really kind of reminded me of, this classical figure drawing. I'm not going to show the original because of copyright issues and all that. And I don't have the reference right now of what magazine it was. But it's two figures. So I'm just going to kind of do a quick kind of draw through, a sketch up, and just kind of get information down, right? That's really what I'm going to focus on. So, quick placement of kind of where I want these distance of heads. One's a little bit taller than the other. What we look for is, kind of getting that gestural expression of the person. The main elements that really give movement and the architecture of the skeletal component of the human body, right? I'm not going to worry about harder elements like foreshortening right now. And it was a little bit like what we were talking about with my previous drawing, although, I was doing a lot more value shading, definitely here. And let me know. Yeah, I think you can see there the paper, right? I was worried it might be too pale, but it looks like it's just right.
I think we're able to see it pretty good. Well, and Tom, so one of the things that I try to, Chad and I both talk about during the live drawing sessions is you want to start out nice and loose, right? Because you're not starting out really rendered or tight. You're holding your pencil kind of loosely, and you're just kind of lightly putting down notes and mark making, right?
That's correct. A lot of my mark making is on the direction of where bones, lines, like, so the neckline, what's that direction? Is it, diagonal to the downward, to the right, to the left, that type of thing. And then I'm going to worry about my proportions at the next phase. Right now, I want to know, where this arm that's coming back and holding her neck, where that kind of is looking at. It's resting on the other person's shoulder. So that's going to be a big element. We have this other person's arm. So after I have that kind of one line that's the representation of the skeleton. And I don't know if
Sorry.
that's all right. Now I'm gonna, start giving it a little bit more volume. So this is where we're talking about before about sculptural elements and making them just, these shapes that start getting more weight, basically.
Because you're not worried about any of the details at this stage, right? You're just looking at kind of, are you eyeballing measurements? Are you kind of working through it?
I
Because
am
it's very
eyeballing.
gestural, right?
Yeah, I definitely right now will definitely eyeball, and there will be a lot of correction later, but I'd like to eyeball the first part, especially when it's human figure and we can see their faces, and that's really gonna be important for me to kind of capture what was captured at that moment of the photograph, right? Or if I had them live, there's just this essence that, I don't want this to become mannequins, right? I want this individuality to still shine through. It's kind of coming back to the conversation of drawing the apple. I mean, I don't want to draw the human figure that I have in mind, from memory, from learning, to identify a person from an apple from a car. I want to try and get this person, observe the person that's in front of me. And so there's
Well,
going to
again,
be
because
nuance, right? Like that nuance is what you don't want to lose. So if I go too focused right now on correct proportions, and it is important, and I guess I should say that also because we have drawn human figure so many times as apples. I mean, we understand how proportions should, are basically going to be laid out by just looking at it. But because when you and I now look at something, we're doing a deeper observation of that, right? We're not just eyeballing, although you and I might think we're eyeballing. I mean, we've done proper scale proportion drawings so many times that we understand how to do that without doing it twice. And also I will say, because this for me would be a first attempt at this subject matter, then I could do another one that I would probably dedicate an hour to versus this one that I'll just do in 20, 30 minutes.
Yep.
That one I might not worry about their expression and their individuality. That one I might go and really just get, really specific about the proportions or the foreshortening, the detail of ears, nose, hands, right? That's where, I want to sit and be a little bit more mechanical and technical.
Well, I think, something that, Chad and I talk a lot about in our drawing classes is a lot of times you lose that energy, right?
Exactly.
You lose the movement or the energy, the excitement that comes from that quick underdrawing, that quick energy that happens when you're light and loose, as I like to say it. And so, you don't want to lose that, right, Tom? Because if you do, then the drawing just becomes very rigid and I think you said mannequin or very mechanical, right? And again, if you want to achieve that, that's fine. I'm not saying that, but like a lot of times it's done not wanting to achieve that. You go, oh gosh, it looks so rigid, it looks so tight, and that's because you didn't start out light and loose. I mean, I think, right? Don't you agree?
Oh, yeah, that's correct. It's exactly what I was, referencing. That there's this.
I love the line weights right now. Like you have these beautiful light wispy lines, and then you have some bigger bolder lines.
Right.
And let's talk about this real quick because I love what you had said. And I think for a lot of young artists, and I know we have a couple of young artists that I do recognize on here that, a lot of times parents will ask me, well, they want to draw, from these references. Is that good or bad? Well, I mean, I'll start. I think it's both. I think it's good to draw from references. We do encourage drawing from life. That's why we do still life drawings and we draw, in the studio, and we draw from models and we draw from what we see physically. But it's also good too to have references to draw from, like drawing from, magazine references or photos that you have or flat references. But I think, you don't want to get caught up on that too much because you still want to just create, right, Tom? But exactly. You have told me one thing, and I'd love for you to articulate this because you say it so much better than I do. Something happens when you're taking something 3D to 2D or 2D to 3D, or it flattens out, or how do you articulate that from reference materials?
Yeah, I mean, this was a big thing with photography, right? I mean, when you look at the simplest is when you work from a 2D, from an image, from a photograph, something that's been printed, so that has already grabbed a three-dimensional object and flattened it out into a two-dimensional object. When you go and draw again on two-dimensional paper, a two-dimensional photograph, the distortion is even made more accented, and so things just look off. So you need to, that's the caveat or the warning that, is given when, yes, it's fine. Grab a magazine, start drawing. I mean, I've always had my students, bring me in 2 images from a magazine, and we're going to just work on that, because you can mark up that magazine, right? So as a professor, it's also a lovely thing to, show them how the clavicle line comes down, or how, this shoulder might be higher than the other if the other hip is, the counterbalance hip is up, those things are a lot easier to explain. But the one thing is that the two-dimensional aspect that's just more perceived when you do that, that's what you need to be very conscious of, and have that practice with the live model or the live object, or, drawing from life, because only then you can correct. And it's what we talked about earlier. When you want to draw that apple and you grab a reference from magazine, like I did with this one, I just really like this pose. I could see myself doing this into a painting, changing it up enough so that it's not an image, I'm not on copyright infringement, making it my own, or even just as a practice. But the point is that I need to be very concerned and conscious about making it back to a reality in some way. And the artistic license should only go so far in saying, I still want it to look real. I don't want it to, be all kind of elongated, unless that's what you're going for. And that's perfectly fine. But that you could probably do from imagination. When you're going to use a reference like this, you want to use it as a reference, as if they were the live model in front of you.
Well, yes, I agree 1,000%, because it's almost kind of like what I'm doing with the painting of my daughter. I have a reference photo that I took of my daughter sleeping, where she looks like, she looks like a pretty princess sleeping. That's why I wanted to capture it that moment. Right. But I also know her and see her, and I'm blending the two together, guys. Does that make sense? Like, I'm using the reference, but I also know that this is what her facial structure looks like, and I can expand on that and make it more real than real. My goal is not to paint the photograph. I have the photograph. I'm not trying to paint. And if you can paint photorealism, Chad and I have talked about this on some of the previous live sessions. Go back and watch them. I'm not going to pontificate too much on it. But if you want to paint it exactly like the photo and do hyper photorealism, fantastic. That's unbelievable. That's just not my goal with this painting, right? My goal is to capture this energy and the movement that comes along from this reference, but also the reality. So I think it's important to do both, Tom. Like you said, you can mark up those references. You can mark up the photos. You can overlay. You can do plain things, planar analysis with tracing paper or vellum. But then drawing from life also gives you that knowledge that you can go, hey, that hand is flattening out because it's a two-dimensional reference. I know how to make that hand more three-dimensional because I've drawn hands enough to know it needs to look like X, Y, or Z. And so it's a combination of your knowledge and skill sets that will ultimately take you further as an artist. And so I tell students and parents, I don't care what they're drawing from, just get them drawing, right?
Exactly. And that's the important thing. I mean, again, even, I had parents in the past where they say, yeah, but, my child likes to only draw, like anime was a big one, right?
Yep. Still is, buddy. Still is. I mean,
and we love it. We grew up on it as well. And we learned how to draw it. And there's validity to that. But the classes I always taught were classical, were more heavy, traditional figure drawing. And, I told my students, you're going to see the improvement in your animated drawing because you're learning true anatomy and dealing with foreshortening challenges and perspective and scale and proportions. And that's what it was. It just gave them, again, that tool, like we talked about earlier, to be more expansively creative in what they want to be creative on, what's genuine to them. So it's just, now they have more flexibility. Now they don't have to limit their arm pose to always on the hip or always, in one. Now they can, move it around and do various things because we've given them that new knowledge, that new tool.
Yep. I mean, here we got Matt, one of our longtime viewers, and he comes to our drop-in drawings. Matt, it's always wonderful to see you. So grateful for all of it. And he actually has a beautiful comment here, Tom. He goes, Both are great. I think both have their advantages and disadvantages. Agreed entirely, Matt. And that said, I'm biased. I love hyperrealism, but I also love drawing from live models at V.A.A.S. And to your point, I think your opening statement says it all. Both are great. Both are great, Matt. Both have pluses and minuses. And if you love hyperrealism, there's nothing wrong with that. If you love impressionism, there's nothing wrong with that either. You want to grow your skill sets to expand in your execution as you want to execute is the best way to put it. But Matt, it's always wonderful to see you. Always grateful for all the comments. We love having you draw from life here at V.A.A.S as well. And we can't wait to see you back here next week. For all of those guys that are gals and everybody that's watching, we have our live streams almost every Saturday, unless we have a student exhibition. That's why we weren't here last Saturday. We had our 8-week student exhibition. We had over 55 participants and over 75 pieces of artwork. We had about 200 individuals come. Make sure you drop in. It's the end of 8 weeks. This past session, we did 4.5 dozen cookies where you got to come in and decorate. They were gone in about 45 minutes time. It was absolutely amazing. And whether you believe it or not, buddy, I didn't get to eat any of them. And I'm very, very sad about that. BJ, thank you so much for baking those wonderfully delicious cookies. It was absolutely a wonderful time. But normally, Saturday, 6 to 8 p.m., we do the V.A.A.S live sessions. This is currently episode 25. Thomas and I can't even believe that it's been 25 episodes since we've done this. It's been amazing. It's a wonderful roller coaster, a wonderful ride. And as Matt joins us, typically on Thursday nights, 6 to 8, after you get off work, after you get out of school, or if you just need a break or whatever it is, come and join us here in historic Middletown in Louisville, Kentucky, and come and draw models, clothed figure drawing, drop in $20 for 2 hours. It's just a wonderful community builder. It's a wonderful chance to kind of grow. You can see how Thomas is building his drawing there, nice, light and loose, building out form and dimension, and then he's going to work on this even more as we go. Maybe, Tom, you can save this and bring it back next week.
Yeah,
hopefully next week, Chad Nuss, our master wizard, our humble wizard, I should say, master draftsman is going to join us again. But Thomas, isn't it just a blast just to create together? I mean, how wonderful is it to take a break from things and just paint and draw?
Yeah, that's just a great way to spend time and advance, because again, the benefits that, we talk about it loosely sometimes, but I mean, there are so many benefits to creating art, even again, just for your own enjoyment. It's just a nice time.
Well, I mean, so many of our students have come in and go, this is such a break for me. This is a break from parenthood or, being a spouse, which, I mean, sometimes you just need to reconnect, right, with yourself. Exactly. And I think that's a very holistic, healthy thing. And when you're creating beautiful artwork and you're doing it in a community, it's just a wonderful thing to experience all together. Matt, again, dropping some wisdom here. I'll put it on the screen as we come up onto our last few minutes. Exactly. Each tool in our tool belt helps us regardless of the type of the art one likes. I completely agree with Thomas. Every time we do these sessions, Tom, it's amazing to me because all of our viewers tend to agree with you and Chad, and I don't get a lot of agreement. I don't know if I'm just not saying the right things or what, but it seems like you and Chad get all the love on these. And one of these days, I'm going to say something that gives me some props. But no, Matt, I think you're right. Obviously, Thomas's statement was absolutely wonderful. Katrine, thanks for joining us. Joe Thomas _ Joe Thomas, thanks for joining us. Guys, we are coming up on the last few minutes. We typically do this 6 to 8 p.m. every Saturday evening. You can watch these on all the different platforms. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X, and Instagram. And if you didn't catch us live, that's okay. You can stream these on all those different platforms at a later time. But we're so wonderful that you guys have joined us. It's been such a wonderful evening creating. We finally got a laugh emoji, which I absolutely love. I should have read it first. Gosh, dang it. I didn't read it first. Here we go. My amazing wife says, I always agree with you, Seth. Thank you, honey. You're the only one. I appreciate you greatly. I'm kidding. I'm so grateful. It's a joke here, but thank you guys so very much. You guys have been absolutely amazing this evening. Thomas, it's just so wonderful to draw. And look at that. Guys, hang on. Before we leave, even if we go a minute or too long, take a look at what he was able to do in 10 minutes? I mean, this is what happens when you build from form and dimension, right? Right, Tom? You started light and loose. Exactly. You didn't focus on detail, but you're sculpting the drawing as it comes to life, right?
Exactly. So now I can allow myself certain, darker values to really kind of push down what I want and bring back in things that, so like I can do that, and that will just start to, give that kind of nice form, value, depth. And that's what we were talking about earlier with those sketches, from life. It's just, you want to keep it loose. You really want to get things just moving fast. And it's a reference, Then once you have this in your head, you have a new apple in your head, like we talked about earlier. So now I can approach a larger drawing of the same subject matter with more detail. But this is now my new reference. The two-dimensional photo reference becomes just something to kind of go back to if I really want to, observe something. But this is now what I would base my new drawing or a large painting from, is getting this kind of dynamic that I'm achieving here.
Absolutely. It becomes a collective mindset, right?
Exactly.
So,
And
ladies and gentlemen, oh, sorry, go ahead, Tom.
no, and I've added my actual touch to this. I'm not now just I've borrowed what I need to borrow from the original photograph. Now I get to even be a little bit creative and add my own little things and shift their gestures a little bit if I want to portray an emotion more particularly.
Absolutely.
Or so that's where all the fun now starts in figurative drawing, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, it's taking it and expanding upon it beyond just the reference itself.
Exactly.
And guys, that's what we want to talk about even more. So next week, make sure that you join us. Put it on your calendar. Set a reminder. Come and join us at V.A.A.S Live. Take a look at what Thomas is going there. Oh, look at that. It's absolutely brilliant. In just a very quick, short amount of time, getting the gesture, getting the pose, breaking it down. It's a phenomenal thing to get to see it. And boy, it's just like magic. It's just watching magic come to life. It's absolutely amazing and brilliant. We're so grateful for all of you guys joining us. I'm Seth Jones, and this is Thomas Tupper, and we're V.A.A.S Live. We'll see you next week, 6 to 8 p.m. on Saturday evening. You guys have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.